Thank you, Bob, and congratulations again. I'm honored to welcome esteemed Graceland graduate, Mr. David Seda, as this year's commencement speaker. Mr. Seda graduated from Graceland in 1983 and went on to achieve his MBA from Texas Tech University. In the years since, he has had a very exciting career in technology sector, including spending time at companies like Apple, Hewlett-Packard, Cisco. He currently serves as the general manager at Microsoft's AI group, Azure AI group. David's story on how he came to Graceland and his career of leadership in technology is one that I hope you all can learn from. At Graceland, David was a triple major in computer science, economics, and business management. He played soccer and performed as a singer and dancer in a touring musical group, the Graceland Ramblers. He served on the Board of Trustees and currently is part of the Graceland Presidential Advisory Council. And I call on him often to get advice, and so thank you for that. I'm thrilled to welcome David to address our graduates today. David.
Thank you. Graduates, thank you for allowing me to be a part of your very special day. It is an auspicious occasion, to be sure. I'd like to thank President Draves for inviting me. When she initially made the call, I thought she'd either dialed an incorrect number or had a concussion. But she assured me the invitation was genuine. Thank you to our distinguished faculty, to the Board of Trustees, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys. With your permission, I'd like to begin with a poem. The Little Fish and the Pike. Spying a worm in the water, the little fish did greatly regret the worm would not become his dish. Up came a pike and made his preparations to dine. He swallowed both worm and hook, which he failed to divine. As the angler pulled ashore his magnificent prize, quote the little fish, sometimes good to be undersized. Graduates, you will soon be leaving this campus on a hill, forever bound together as the proud class of 2024. And yet, you are not all equally equipped. Instead, you are each uniquely equipped. The reasons, as with the little fish, are not always evident. A shout out to any English majors who will have recognized that that was a fable, not to be confused with a parable, or an allegory, or an apologue. It was written in 1779 by a Polish poet named Ignacy Radzicki, who 3 years earlier, in 1776, wrote the very first Polish novel. So, this is it. You are here. You've studied models and methods and concepts and theories and policies and practices and paradigm shifts, and you're finally here. You should be very proud. You should be proud of your struggles, your determination, the focus that you've demonstrated, the sleepless nights you've endured, the self-doubt, the anxiety, to finally get to this day, and this place, and this moment. Exhale. You did it. It's okay, make some noise, give yourselves a round of applause. And thank you to your family and friends and well-wishers. They may be prouder of you today than you are, because they knew even when you didn't always believe, and they believed when you sometimes doubted, And they were right. You made it, you're here. So thank you to your supporters. When I left Graceland, I went straight to work on a master's. The university I attended gave me an applied research laboratory, and my research involved accepting patients from the university hospital who were suffering from cerebral palsy and had deteriorating motor skills. And what I tried to do was to make little improvements in their lives by teaching computers to understand their voice and human speech, so it could help them with small tasks. It's a domain of artificial intelligence called natural language processing, or NLP. Well, fast forward, years later, we did manage to teach computers how to understand human speech. You're welcome, Siri. You're welcome, Alexa. And today, I work in a domain of artificial intelligence known as large language models, where we feed enormous amounts of human knowledge, everything: nature, science, math, chemistry, religion, philosophy, biology. And then we try to build useful applications on top of that. If you've heard of ChatGPT, ChatGPT is an example of an application, a query and response application, a chat, built on top of a language model called GPT, hence the very creative name ChatGPT. And that's where I spend most of my time. But here's the thing. Everywhere I've been, I've never once been asked, what do you know? No one's asked to see any of my degrees. Instead, they ask, what can you do for us, and how will you involve others in so doing? So they ask you to solve a complex real-world problem, and they ask you to engage others in the process. How do you collaborate? Where do you delegate? Whom do you include? Where do you provide allyship? How do you coach and mentor? In other words, how do you lift people up? It turns out that's how value is created in organizations, in communities, and in societies. So, your journey from here will be less about proving what you know and more about showing who you are. Michelangelo, the famed Italian artist and sculptor, said, "Every stone contains a statue. It is the job of a sculptor to discover it." "I saw an angel in the marble," he said, "and I carved away until I set him free." He could see the potential in a block of marble, and through his skillful hands, Michelangelo would chisel away at the excess until the angel, which had always resided in the marble, was finally set free. Chisel away. Say it. Chisel away. Say it. Chisel away. In order for us to embrace our uniqueness, to live authentically, we must chisel away. To discover your truest form of yourself, you must chisel away. To confront your fears, the things that hold you back, you must chisel away. It's a constant struggle, the fear of revealing our true selves, the fear of judgment. It takes courage to make the personal sculpting journey. Albert Einstein put it this way: do not try to become a person of success. Try to become a person of value. The reason I love Michelangelo's approach to his art as a philosophical concept for life is that it requires us to reflect and search within to remove the self-imposed limitations on our full potential. Chisel away. Think of an analog. Have you ever been in a situation where you ask someone, what do you want for dinner? And they say, I don't know. What do? You chisel away. You say, well, what about Mexican food? And they say, nah. And you do what? You chisel away. What about pizza? And you continue that process of elimination until you reach a decision. And the reason that works is because sometimes it's easier to know what you don't want than it is to decide what you do want. So if you're sitting here and you're one of those people who are not quite sure what you want to do next, you probably know what you don't want to do. I spent 12 years working at Apple. Apple was defined less by the products we chose to make and more by the products we didn't make. Steve Jobs always used to tell us, focus doesn't mean saying yes to the things you're going to focus on. Focus means saying no to the hundreds of really good ideas that are out there. In fact, Steve was as proud of the things we didn't do as the things we did. We had ideas to create all sorts of products, to create a car, to create personal transportation devices. All that was left after we said no to all of those things was to invent the iPod, and so we did. And the rest is history. In other words, the process of elimination created focus. So, if you happen to be one of those people who are not quite sure what to do, try to identify things you don't want to do. Sometimes that's easier. Eliminate those things that are just not you. Reject the things that are distractions, and be deliberate. In 2012, I got rid of my television set because what I wanted to learn wasn't on TV. And yet, on the weekend, I'd find myself flipping through channels looking for content, so I got rid of it. And that freed up more time for other things like research. By the way, the average time spent on watching entertainment is about 7 to 8 hours a day on some screen. Netflix, YouTube, TikTok, right? I've never had a Facebook account, never had a Twitter or X account. So, eliminate distractions to find your focus. Okay, last tip. Learn to ask really good questions. How do you ask good questions? Well, you already know that you're supposed to ask open-ended questions, not closed questions. And actively listen for the response and ask a follow-up question. But the real key is to become a better question asker. And to do that, you need 3 things. 1, be genuinely curious. Try to extract new information with your question. Make the responder give a thoughtful reply. So instead of asking, how was your day? Maybe ask, what was your favorite part of the day and why? Number 2, be purposeful. Be clear in your mind what you're trying to learn. Be intentful. And 3, be brave. Really good questions often ruffle feathers. Don't be afraid of what people will say or think. Great questions create clarity. A few years ago at a prior employer, I asked the HR department what data did they have to show our female employees that women were earning equal pay for equal work. They didn't have a very good answer. So I went straight to our CEO and we forced a conversation about what we could do to accelerate equality inside our company. Now, most of all, remember to ask the most obvious questions. People forget to ask the obvious questions. Case in point, in the 1980s, the National Basketball Association, the NBA, had a rule that all shoes had to be 51% white. True story. And everybody followed the rule. Until one day, Nike did what no one else had thought to do. Nike asked the question, well, what happens if we break the rule? Well, when they got the reply, they couldn't believe it. So, they would put their shoes on Michael Jordan for the entire 48 minutes of a basketball game. Their shoes would look different than any other shoe out there. And everybody would be talking about their shoe, and it would cost Nike a $5,000 fine. Well, looked at in those terms, it was the media deal of the century. And so Nike put their shoes, the famous red and black ones, on Michael Jordan. The commentators were outraged. The television cameras zoomed in on this supposedly illegal shoe. And everyone across the country was talking about Air Jordans. And all because Nike asked the question that no one else thought to ask. I know less today than I did when I graduated. You will find that the more you learn, the less you know. So don't let the schooling that you've received here interfere with your education. Don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all. And if someone doubts or says, well, you come from a little school in southern Iowa, quote the little fish, sometimes good to be undersized. You've all been very kind. Thank you very much. Class dismissed.